I'm going to tell a million stories. And maybe one will hit home and you'll be like, wow, that happened to me. And it's not about me. What is? You know, television is a very, very crazy beast. I learned so much at Tyra. This is real emotion. This is something that I experienced.
I want the world to see what I have always seen, and that is the love that you have for just being yourself.
I love this person who knows who he is, who can make people laugh.
I think the script I gave you was a little bit different, but I'll take that.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm drinking at work because it's my show. I drink on my show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Do It Like Danny. This is day 4027, and we're here with Karen in our 9th hour of taping, and it's fantastic. It's wonderful. Thank you for coming back, Karen and Polly. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
We're here
actually
at
chained to the
Montecito.
table.
We should have chained. Fast chain. How funny would that be? Like, he's not kidding. Send Dr. Pepper. And thank you, Louie. We're back live here again. Live. We're live.
Never lied.
You see what you bring out of me? I mean, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Get in your fucking seat.
You're giving them television PTSD.
I just don't want to run out.
Oh my god.
Here, I have some too.
I don't want
It's ridiculous. 13 years.
You know, I always forget how funny Kieran is until he shows up with the
I'm here to
clips.
remind you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know what's so funny is I had posted something last year when you were here, and it popped up in my feed, and I go, "Oh, that's ironic. You come around October."
We're just like Halloween.
Spooky season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a full menu.
Oh yeah.
She hit the ground running and was over there.
Always.
I'm like, how are you using your phone? How are you recording?
He's got two.
He's got
a
two,
big
yeah.
deal.
He's very
she's
big.
She's a big deal.
He had two last
That's
time.
serious.
With an S.
How serious is that? Uh-oh.
Is it Tyra?
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Is it John Redmond?
No, we're
Is it Don Lemon?
No, John Redmond.
Oh,
John Redmond.
Zolita.
Is John Redmond? Yeah.
Zolita.
Zolita. Yes, coming live. Zolita is going to be at the Troubadour November the 19th. If you'd like to go with me, I'm giving away one free ticket to be my date to go to Zolita. If you don't know who she is, go to Apple Music or Spotify Live to listen to Zolita.
We should get her as a guest.
Oh my
I know.
god, she'd be a great guest.
She'd be a great guest.
Karen,
Yes.
book her.
Yeah, you
Okay,
should.
book her.
She's like, where am I going? I'm like,
Right this way, man.
not Menifee, Montecito. So welcome back. I know that when we left in our last episode, we were talking about audience crazy things, and I was talking about medical emergencies, much like Murdoch mysteries.
God. Check it out, CBC.
But first, coming up next on Big Danny.
What I want to actually make a comment because you were saying that when these medical emergencies were happening during live shows, you'd have directors being like, "Get her out of here," blah blah blah. But it's like it's always funny because when you're in that moment of TV, there's certain people and certain levels of people that just think that this is the most important thing in the world. Like this show right now is the be all and end all.
We are saving lives at the end of the day.
And I think that's the thing. Like,
saving
we are not
lives.
saving lives. So if there's like an emergency, or even like, oh, we're missing this, someone just got to run out and grab it really quick, and you have this PA driving dangerously, like, no. You know what I mean? Like, you got to really have a line to be like, I'm going to do this safely, because if something happens to me, they're just going to replace me.
Yeah.
You know what I
Do
mean?
you think, though, that the kids nowadays have that mentality?
I feel like it's maybe shifting a little bit towards being a little bit, just because I think with cancel culture and like workplace toxicity and all that kind of stuff, I think people
So many
are
big words.
Yeah, I think people are sort of letting off
Use
the
it in a
gas a little bit.
sentence.
Yeah.
I think they're letting off the gas a little bit, but it's just that mentality of like, this is the most important thing right now, and like, pull this poor woman who's having an epileptic seizure off the stage. Like, why don't we just stop down for a second? Or like, I can do this around the cameras. You know, it's just
Cut to standby, like back in the day. You know, or you're right. The good way he could have been like, camera 4, camera 5, move out of the
Move
way
out
so
of the
that they
way.
can move. We'll just shoot
Straight
this one
on.
area.
Yeah.
Like, but you know, they weren't very flexible like that.
Yeah.
It was, I think in that, on that particular show on the talk, I think that everybody was just afraid of Julie.
Right.
And nobody wanted to everyone had to make sure that Julie looked good. You know, they fired a lighting person. You know, she had to have a particular sound person. It was always making her look good. And I kind of touched on it back in the last episode where I said, you know, I was a fan. I was a huge Big Brother fan.
Yeah.
And when I got a chance to work in that environment with her, I was like, oh my God, I get to breathe the same air as Julie Chen, but first, right? Chenbot.
Yeah.
And what I began to realize was she's just phoning it in.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the level of it has to stay the same every single day for Julie. Julie doesn't want it to change. And I'd be like, why not? Like, well, she has to approve it. And it was this weird, like, pressure that all the producers were under. And I never understood that because, you know, I come from a mentality of everybody wipes their ass on their own, right? You're either a lefty or a righty. And until the day somebody wipes it for you, well, then yes, okay, then maybe I will listen to you and kind of bow down. But until then, you know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody wiping her ass until she's 80.
You also want the show to evolve, right? You don't want it to be stagnant. And I think with that sort of mentality, like you're putting it in a box and you're leaving it in there, which is maybe why it didn't go any further, because they didn't, you know, adapt, or they couldn't adapt because of certain things.
And that blew my mind, because I would sit there in rehearsals and they're like, it has to be the same way. And all you would change is a few names here and a few names there, but it was always, the opening was the same.
Yeah.
It was always, you know, the same this, the same that. The closing was the same. Sans a few words, sans a few if, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost a lot of respect, because I was always so impressed with her ability to truncate the segment. So at the end, the last segment was usually the giveaway segment. Right. And so, you know, if we were like, oh, Julie, you only have like, you know, 1:30, she would be able to hit all the points and go through everything quickly. And you're just like, fuck, that's insane, right? And she would memorize it versus, Julie, you're good. You got 2:30. And she'd stretch it. And she would know how to, like, I always was so impressed by that, right? But,
it's
you
a
know,
skill.
It is a huge skill, because Mrs. O didn't have that skill. God bless her. Love Mrs. O to death.
Yeah.
But Mrs. O would be like, what does this prompt think? Like, you know, and it was funny.
But
it was
that's the
really
personality
funny.
of the show, right?
Yeah,
correct.
That's what I watch it for.
But
Well,
Julie, that's
Well, I think you're alluding to something I talked about in the previous episode about getting too comfortable somewhere. And I think when there is a need for consistency, so viewers know when they tune in what they can expect. But it is important to change it up, whether it be hosts, whether it be the kinds of segments they're doing in that. And that's why, like, The View has lasted as long as it has, is because it hasn't been afraid to make those changes. And there are some seasons that are better than others. There are different seasons where the panel worked better than the other, but they were constantly evolving in that. And I think when I was in my job at the morning show for 11 years, like, I got to a place where I was very comfortable, and it was like I was producing the same kind of segment every year. It was like, and you know the themes. It's like, okay, October, it's the Halloween, then it's December, it's the giveaways, then your breast cancer. Like, it just became so formulaic that, like, every year you knew, and you're producing the same thing. And so the thing I've challenged myself with moving forward in my career is, like, I never want to be somewhere where it gets that comfortable again, because I think it can be scary to leave a job and find something else. And I was unsure of, and there's a lot of work to be done when you do join a new team, and it's scary and you don't know what the dynamic's like and what the show's going to be like. And it's, but the, what do they say with, like, the biggest risks sometimes have the greatest rewards.
Yes.
Like, that's what happened to me. It's like, you have to take those risks. If you get comfortable, you could be doing the same thing for 20 years and then
I think
then
going
you
back
die.
to when you moved to New York, and, like, it was your first month there, and, like, the training was a bit off, and you were really trying to find your footing.
Yeah.
I remember you would call, or you'd come home and you'd be really stressed out. You're like, I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah.
And it was just like you had been stuck in that cycle for so long, and then all of a sudden you were pushed into this new.
Well, I was the
role.
person, and I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure. I know you were this person at the Talk in Taiwan where you had all the answers because you'd worked there long enough that people were coming to you with questions, and you're like, I have the answers. To leave that and go to a new place where you're the one asking the questions, it's humbling, and it's a lot of work. And so, I think sometimes we're scared to do that. But
that was my last year at the Talk when I got promoted to giveaways. I had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I think and I will say this, I think I had ruined it at that point because I had been in audience and audience producing for so long, and I had dabbled in giveaways, but until I actually jumped both feet in, I didn't understand the gravity of the situation. And so coming from audience where I knew everything, right, and then going into giveaways where I knew how to finagle giveaways and get them, but there was so many more mechanical things that were
legal,
involved.
There's like payment.
Oh,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. Like that's how those shows exist now, is through the giveaways and integration. So it's like that's how they still exist. Well, no, the talk's no longer good.
Yeah, that's and to kind of play both to play into the talk, because the talk is canceled.
Yeah.
You know, it lasted 15 years.
Yeah.
But there are producers there that have been there for 15 years.
Wow.
Right? And those same producers I would have conversations with, and they would tell me they knew who Heather was. Yeah. I didn't know who she was. Right. I thought she was my friend, right? But they're like, oh, no, it's going to change for you. You're going to see. And I refused to see it until it was too late, right?
So then you were kind of like alerted to who she
I
could
knew
be.
I was going to get fired.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, executives knew. Everybody knew around me. And I just denied it because I kept wanting to do a good job, right? I in my mind, and I know we've touched this before, in my mind, I thought they're going to see my worth.
Yeah.
They're going to see my worth.
Well,
and I did. I
pumping
wasn't
yourself into it. And
yeah, and
they're
I
gonna
was
figure it out.
I was
eventually.
working 18 hours, and
Yeah.
even my old staff was like, "You were a shell of a person because you were not Danny anymore."
Yeah.
And I was fighting against, they colluded against me. It was Heather, it was Mark, it was this girl named Brittany, and this other girl named Joy, and they were just always. And then, but I will say this. I have to take responsibility for what I brought to the table. What I brought to the table was, you just said it earlier, Danny can walk into a room and have people laughing and pretty much get whatever he wants, right? Well, because I had done that in audience for so long, my team, they were fine. They had learned to live with me. But now that I was in a new environment, there was competition. And
so they were threatened.
They were threatened, and now I see that they were threatened.
They wanted that energy. They wanted to be that person.
They wanted that energy. They wanted that to be able to turn in a dime and be able to just be the Pied Piper, and they didn't possess that. They had to work really hard at it, right? And so hard at it that even after I left the show, one of the executives, John, said to
not naming names.
But yeah, to David, he said, the giveaways just haven't been the same since Danny.
Interesting.
And they weren't, because I brought a love to it. Yeah. I wasn't just turning and burning brands. Yeah. I brought a love to it. And, going back to producers that are still there, they knew how to play the game. They knew we do everything for Julie. We do everything for Heather. We don't ever say no. They knew not to rock the boat. Yes, of course, they're still in it. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, who's worse off? Someone that becomes a slave, for lack of a better word, or a zombie, right? Versus someone like me who my bubble got popped. I'm out of it. Yeah. I'm back into reality.
Yeah.
You always wonder, because I hear, grumbling, oh, well, Danny, what's he doing now? He's driving for Uber. He's a 3-time Emmy Award winner, blah, blah. But you know what? Nothing is beneath me. It never was. Yeah. And that doesn't bother me.
It's a full circle. You started.
Exactly.
You started in this capacity, and nothing's like better or more like, yes, TV might be a little bit more glamorous, but like, look at the conversations you're having in Uber. Like, we took an Uber yesterday. We had a hilarious conversation with you'll meet the most interesting people. And I think that's, I don't look down at any job, because everything is a stepping stone to you're in the next phase of your life. And I know that sounds really corny, but
no,
that's it.
Not.
And it's like, I think that's something when I left Tyra, I thought I was like, oh, what are people going to say? I was so concerned about what my next job was to be like, well, I'm over here doing this and everything's shining. No one cared.
Nobody cared. Yeah.
And the people that were talking about it go off. But it takes you years to get to that part where you're just you drown out the noise, because that's all it is it's just noise. But when you're young and this business will do it to you, everyone has an opinion. not just the ladies at the table, and they love to chit chat, and it really messes with your mind and your mental health, because you're like, well, they think this of me, and my worth is my job. No, your job is not your identity. It has nothing to do with that.
Well, especially
Yeah.
especially because sorry to interrupt, but the TV world, I'm sure in LA too, but in Canada is very small. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have those gossipers. You're gonna have people talking all of it, and it's like that just kind of perpetuates that idea of like, oh, I need to have something set up for later, or else I'm gonna get shit talked over here. But it's like scary.
Well, and I even noticed like early in your career when each season it would come up and like people would be moving up or changing to new jobs, like no one chatted about what they wanted or the opportunity they were going for.
You always kept your cards close to your chest.
Cards very close to your chest, because you didn't want that person to take your opportunity. And no one's gonna take it. Like if it's meant to be yours, it will be yours. If you work for it, it will be yours.
And here's the crazy part. So, you know, we've been doing this show for a while. Season 2 has been 4,000 episodes. But it wasn't until recently where I quit and I realized my value and my worth, because if this had been the talk, I would have stayed with this person, right?
Yeah.
I would, because I'm thinking in my mind, oh, if I stay, they're gonna see what I'm worth, right? And so I was
it's like a bad relationship.
It's you're totally right. It's like a bad abusive relationship. Man, you hit the nail on the head. And so I went back to driving full time again, right?
Yeah.
I never drive evenings. I just drive mornings. I make enough to support myself, right?
Yeah.
It's not terrible. This is the best part. So, and I'm going to tell a story, and I know he'll probably tell a different story. So it's late at night. It's like 10 o'clock. I never drive this late, but I don't know. I was up, and I was bored. I didn't want to sit at home and just stuff my face with Cheez-Its and popcorn.
Just one of those perfect nights, huh?
Yeah. And
Sounds
so
great to me.
I got into West Hollywood. I was near the Starbucks, which that doesn't narrow it down, but just so you understand, I was near Stash. And so I got this guy, his name was Brandon. I said, oh great, whatever, cool. So I'm like by the Vons, like I'm on this like little side street, and there's traffic coming. I'm really not supposed to be parked there, but I'm like, whatever, it's late at night, who cares, right? And I think it was like I don't know, what did I text you? What did I call you? It was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the week.
Something random, like a middle of the week thing, right? So I'm sitting there, and you know, normally people come up and they identify themselves, right? This person started banging on my door. He's like, smack, and I rolled the window. I was like, yo! I'm like, do you have a problem here? Like, I got all crazy because it's still my car.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's still my car,
totally.
and I don't think people understand that. Like, you don't have a right to touch the glass or rap on it. What if you scratch it? What if you break it? Like, and I don't think that they understand that, and they think I'm coming off as being rude. I'm like, it's still my car, right? So I was like, are we giving a problem? He's like, no, man. I'm so sorry. And he was absolutely loaded, right? Sorry, Brandon. And so he gets in the car, and, you know, it was kind of tense for a hot second, but he was really good at diffusing it. So he's like, how's your night going? And I kind of ease up a little bit because I was like, fuck, this is going to be a nightmare because he's probably super drunk. Don't throw up in my car. He's banging on my glass. Like, who else is going to do to me, right?
It could have went either way.
It could have went either way. You're totally right? And so he started talking, and so it eased up a little bit. And so we started chatting back and forth. And he just started to tell me, like, his life story. And I think that's what I love about doing it, is because you meet the most random of people and you hear the most amazing stories sometimes. Sometimes they're shit stories, right? For the most part, his story was amazing. And I don't want to share too much of it, so because there's more to come. And so we're talking, and he just starts crying. He's telling this amazing story about, you know, his buddy. He was in West Hollywood because his buddy, he was black, and so his buddy's black also too. And the reason why I say he was black is because in the black community, being gay there's such a stigma, right? It's just it's like Mexican. It's like there's just like machismo that like, and so he goes, my buddy, he's 6'4". He came out. He had a coming out party tonight in West Hollywood, and he's like, I'm just so happy for him. And he was like crying, and I was like, oh my God. But the funniest thing, he goes, but I'm straight. He's like, I'm straight.
You gotta let it know. You gotta let it know.
He's like, I'm straight, right?
Don't even try it.
That's right in my alley.
and when's your party?
He's all like, you got into the right car today.
I'm all this like, what was that, the cab that lit up? Cash cab. Danny's gay cab. And so we had like a really amazing moment. And he's like, oh man, he's like, towards the end of the ride, he goes, "I've had the best conversation with you. You're amazing." And I'm like, "You're amazing." We're like buddies. We're fist bumping each other. He just became this really great energy. And he goes, "Well, my name is Brandon." Is that
He's
me?
here.
Yeah, Brandon's here to pick you up.
Brandon's here. And he goes, "My name is Brandon Rush." And I said, "Okay, nice to meet you." He goes, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I don't know who you are, right?" And he goes, "I'm on Power."
Oh.
And I go, "On Stars?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "I've heard of it. I gotta go watch it now." I guess he's one of the characters in Stars. And so when he goes, "Oh, that's great." He goes, "Let me see your Instagram." So I told him my Instagram. And he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "You're famous." And I go, "I'm not famous. You're famous." I go, "You know 50 Cent." And he goes, "No, you're like a 3-time Emmy Award winner." And he was like going crazy. And he goes, "You have a show?" And I go, "Yeah, I do a podcast." He's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I want to be on your show." And I was like, "Well, season 3 is coming up." And he goes,
Next year.
"Season 3, I'm going to be on your season 3. I said, "Okay, so Brandon,
Oh, here we go.
because you know we're going to cut this clip. And you know I'm going to send it to you. You promised me in the Uber that night that you were going to come on my show and you were going to share your story. And I can't wait to have you on my show." So once again, Brandon Rush, the call is out to you. Season 3 is coming up in 2028. No, I'm just kidding. Season 3 will be coming up soon, and I will
With
be
a live studio audience.
I know, right?
And giveaways.
Could you imagine? Oh yeah, but that would be great.
Yeah, it
huh?
would be great.
That would be great.
Can we
Listen,
just
you never
go
know.
back real quick talking about, because that's a great story and it kind of like points out to what I was going to tell you earlier. You letting go of the talk wasn't the worst thing. It was actually the best thing, because even if you went back into television, what else did you have to prove?
Yeah.
I mean, the higher
Yeah.
up you go, the farther you are away from the
Reality.
not even that. It's you're a person for the people. And I've said this, Kieran has told you this, you bring people together.
I think it's in your intro. I've said that.
But the higher up you go, the less you're connected with people. And again, even if you went back into television, what else was there to prove? There are people who want to go that far,
Yeah.
but they're not for the people like
And they're
you.
not happy.
They're not.
They're not happy. I can see it. I see it in some of their faces. Some of them, you get older and they're fighting to keep jobs.
Oh, yeah.
They're taking whatever they can take. And I don't want to be that person.
No.
Yeah.
I want to be able to pick and choose. And so far, I've been able to pick and choose. Not only friends, maybe some family.
As long as their rating is above 4.9.
Right, thank you, thank you. It's 4.90, 4.90. Yes.
But I
and then
think-
lift if you're 5 stars, you get picked up automatically.
But I think it goes back to that story that you just said. You are a person of the people and you bring people together, and that's where you belong. You don't belong any higher than where you were, and I think you kind of figured that out.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure that out. It took me a long time because then also too, you don't want to have a big head. I don't want to walk around and be like, I'm so amazing, and you know what I mean. Like I don't want to be that person. But I think what's happening right now in my trajectory of life is I have people coming from the past that have kind of been not unloading on me, but have had emotional receipts. And I'll share more in a few more episodes because I know we don't have 5 hours for this one. But, you know, I have people from my past coming to me saying, you did this to me when we were doing this.
Interesting.
And that hurt my feelings. And it was like over 20 years ago, right? And they've been very good lessons because I've been listening. And I've been trying to listen through their pain and their hurt and try to establish, are you jealous of me? What I get it. You know, I'm an entity that there's only one me.
Yeah.
There's only one me. And I know that I can, just by walking into a room, I can make people feel inferior, even if you've never met me before. And you either love me or you either hate me. And there's no middle ground. What do you think is so interesting? There's no middle ground.
No.
I've never heard anyone be like,
Where do we fall?
we know you hate me.
But would you say people who want to compete with you feel that way the most? That's how I view that.
So I would agree with you, but I never want to be that person that's like, oh my God, people are competing with me, right? I never actually, it didn't.
I think it also has to do a lot with them too. Like if they're going into it insecure, they're gonna read you the wrong way.
Correct.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Absolutely.
it's not. I don't think it's your cross to bear. I think it's like if you have a problem with this, then like
It's
that's on you.
that's
You
on
have to work
you.
on that.
It's
I'm
all-
good with me. You know what I mean?
It's also how easy you make it. That's the real problem I think people have is they have to work so hard to do what you pretty much just wake up and are.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to give you a big head. It's just how that's the whole
We just
reason.
have to harness it for season 3.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
Coming
with
soon.
A live studio audience.
Yes.
And
Like, I keep-
giveaways.
I like how he keeps adding that. He really does want to be on the
Season
promo.
3. He's in the promo.
Just
yeah, he's only wants to the promo. If you'd like to apply, go to. If you're going to be in the Los Angeles area,
At the
Oh my
end.
God, are we taking the show to New York? We should
Yeah.
take the show to New York.
yeah, Louis wants to go to New York.
I would
We
love to
should.
try
Make sure
that.
you
We should go to
email.
Canada.
Make sure you email do.it.
Dot.
Here's a question for both of you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but because you've both
What
have
is this,
been
The View?
you both have been to LA and you both have been to New York and you both have done production there. Who does it better?
That's a good question.
I think you would agree with this. They're very different. I find New York, and this is going to sound so cliche, but everything's just so much more fast paced. Like it was a different energy. I don't know if one does it better than the other. They're just very, very different. I think we thrived in that New York production experience because we like that immediate response. Like if something needs to happen, we're already at like step 5, 6, 7 to make it
Interesting.
happen. Whereas here, I think people are a little bit more laid back. You have more time to do things, the urgency. I mean, a lot of those shows are taped. Not the talk, but like those talk shows are taped. So you just have more time
There's
to like,
breathing room.
yeah. And then there's editing and stuff like that. Where in New York, it was like, we tried to say, I know Tyra was taped, both in LA and New York. And you can speak to this better than I can because you work in both places. But I feel like once we sort of got going in New York, yes, it did take longer than the hour that you're watching to tape, but everyone's time was more important. Like it just kept getting quicker and quicker to the point where I think we got to a point where like it was just
Like
it
second
was
nature.
sure, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it was just right.
So
Like,
in LA, one episode would probably take, no lie, 5+ hours to tape.
Wow.
And you're doing, some days you're doing double episodes,
Right.
and you're just like, we want to stab your eyes out, right? When we moved to New York, it was sort of like that in the beginning, but then they started doing three
shows,
shows a day because Tyra had read somewhere in Forbes or the business school or whatever that this was a more effective way to do things, and it also gave her more free time in her schedule because she wanted more free time, which, you know, good for her.
Yeah.
But it put more pressure on us. But it actually made us a very well-oiled machine.
Totally.
I think that I agree with you in terms of they're very different environments, but I also think that if you start off in TV production here and you don't possess that,
That X Factor.
I don't know if it's just the X factor, but if you can't adapt and be flexible, you will not do well in New York.
Interesting.
Whereas if you start off in New York and you come to LA, you're going to
handle
be
it.
like, oh my God.
100%.
You know what I mean? You're gonna be like,
And that's how I felt. Yeah, and I think there's the fact that in New York, Hollywood, the TV business, entertainment isn't the sole business in that city. It's like there's the finance bros, there's marketing, there's just so many more occupations that take up space and priority in that city that it's like no one is like awestruck that you work in TV here.
they don't care.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
you're
LA,
like, you-
it's like, oh, I work in TV, and they're like, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. How can I get in there? And it's like
Well,
crazy.
in LA, also too, when you say, "Oh, I work in the business," or I have worked in it, it's like, well, who do you know?
No, yeah,
'Cause I
yes,
know,
exactly.
and that's how it's based here.
Yeah.
But in New York, I agree with you 1,000,000%. So in New York, when we would go to clubs and stuff, oh, you work for Tara, and they're like, okay, whatever, nobody cares.
Yeah.
No, you know, Fannie Mae, they're like, oh yeah, really? Oh, mortgage? Oh my God, you're like in the financial district, and da-da. That's who ran that city.
Got
I
it.
mean, we pretty much would probably have the equivalent of like working at like Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's because
Wow.
they didn't care.
Interesting.
They did not care, and I don't know. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that
Yeah.
because when you would meet people and you'd be like, oh, I just work in TV, they weren't like, oh my God, that's it. You know,
there was a respect there, but it wasn't like, there was
Nowhere
no, oh my
near.
God,
in-
can you get me tickets?
you weren't being put on
Who's
a
the coolest
pedestal.
celebrity you've met? Like,
But-
none of those questions.
But and also too, and like to kind of go back, because I don't know if we've ever touched on this, but like back in the early days of Tyra in New York, I mean, you've always also been a hit. You are amazing at networking, and so he would, what was the bar? It was on 14th, but it was on, I think, on either 9th and 10th or 10th. It was further out, and you would be with Chase Crawford and all of
West Side Tavern.
Yeah, West Side Tavern. But you were with all of the, what was that show that they were all
Gossip
on?
Girl.
Gossip Girl. So Kieran,
XOXO.
Kieran had a very, very, from early on, a very affinitive taste for being able to bag those celebrities in their sort of natural environment, if you will. And I always admired that about you, because we would go dancing and you're like, oh, look, there's Chase Crawford. Oh my God, Chase. Right? And you knew everything. And I'm like, oh, hi, Danielle Fischel. Right? And people were like, who? And I'm like, I love Danielle.
We were just in Salt Lake City, and we ran randomly into Lisa Barlow.
Oh, wow.
The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and Kieran was like, he's like, there's her husband. She's got to be close. Oh, her car's here. There's a Wendy's
my
cup. And then
Yes.
it's like,
You have always been so good at that. We went to even when we went to Coldplay.
Yep.
At the Hollywood, not the Hollywood Bowl, we went to the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
You were like, oh, look, there's Dakota Fanning. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, what was her name?
Dakota Johnson.
See, Danny doesn't even know that.
I mean, I'm sure Fanning was there too, but Chris Martin isn't dating
Wait,
her.
you're like, oh yeah, Chris Martin's dating her. Oh my God. And that means so-and-so else is going to be here. And like they were, and you're just like, man, you're fucking crazy. This is insane.
Guess who was 2 rows behind us last night at Kygo?
Ooh.
Shawn Mendes.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at
Again, he was
You
spotted Shawn
see?
Mendes.
You see, you've always had that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to spot talent for us for season 3.
coming soon with a live studio
Hey,
audience.
free giveaways!
I've got a question for you. So I saw recently in an interview that Tyra was asked if she would ever come back to TV, and she said that she is working on a project right now. Didn't give any hints, but there was some. It was for the Today Show, and obviously Hoda's leaving the Today Show, and she was like, "Yeah, that I was talking to her boyfriend, and I think that would be a really good thing. That sort of morning show space. Could you see her coming back to doing a talk show, and what would that look like, and what would your advice be for her?"
So, I've always loved Tyra. We had an amazing, working relationship. I've always loved her because I truly believe that she is definitely one of the executives or producers or whatever her title is, where it trickles down from the top. I love that production. It wasn't the same for everybody, but on my end, I always saw a different side of Tyra. I do know her strengths and her weaknesses. She's not amazing live. She'd have to really work on that, right? And she'd have to work on being a little bit more empathetic. I think she gets too much in her head, and she tries to do things because she wants people to think that she's hip. But I think if she just focused on just being more of herself, the Tyra that I knew, when I would see her backstage and we would like, oh my God, when we'd be dancing or doing whatever, I feel like that childlike nature would still work well for her in this day and age right now. If somehow she knew and wanted me to go work on it,
That was my next question.
I would
you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would 1,000,000% go work. I just have this affinitive love for her that honestly, like at the end of the day, it's like I couldn't imagine. It was the best time of my life working on a production, and you had like with Alex and, John and Rachel, like each of those executives were hard in their own different ways. I learned a lot from Rachel. I learned a lot from Alex, and I learned a lot from John also too. So that trifecta kind of helped me propel my career into the next level, and probably will help me run this show one day also too. So yeah, and I wish her the best of luck. Thoughts and prayers?
Call him.
I'm here. And with that being said, I hope you guys call me tomorrow because I'm going to go drinking with these boys tonight and I'm not waking up. More videos to come. Like, follow, subscribe. Tickets. You want to be a part of our live studio audience? Coming up in season 3, you'll have the opportunity to sit and breathe the same air as myself in Montecito.
Travel not provided.
Boy, we're prohibited in Puerto Rico. And with that being said, always remember to do it like Danny.
Make sure to thank them before you leave out.
Oh, yeah. And always remember to thank your guests whenever they're on your show. So thank you so much, Kieran, for coming from all the way from Canada. And thank you so much, Polly, for being
Thank
here
you
for the
for
first
having
time
me.
ever. I appreciate it. I love you both so much. You know that I do.
Love you.
We love you
And I
too.
couldn't see my life without the two of you.
Oh, you're sweet.
Even Louie. So there's probably people in your life that you couldn't see also too. So you need to make sure you call them, write them, text them, whatever you kids do nowadays. App, Messenger, Grinder, Tinder, whenever. Make sure they know that you love them because I love all of you. And remember to always have. Oh fuck! What'd I say?
Do it like Danny.
I got all fucking sappy. Fuck! I had a good turn. Okay. Remember, you have somebody back that you love also too, so you should reach out to whomever. And I know I sound fucking sappy because I've had too much sugar and we've been drinking. So I love all of you.
You can do it on his show.
And thank you. It's
It's
my
his
show.
show.
I love all of you. I want you guys to go and spread some love too. I don't want to be like Ellen. Be kind.
Oh,
No, 'cause
God.
sometimes a bitch needs a bitch slap, okay? So with that being said, always remember to do it like Danny.